Hey guys, welcome back to another edition of Chai with Coaches. I'm here with my co-host, Nahid Oberfeld. Nahid, how's it going?
Pretty good. Cannot believe that we're almost in fall. How are you doing?
I'm good. Yeah, it's almost at the end of September. 2021 has kind of flown by a little bit. Definitely faster than 2020 has. So that's a good thing, I think. It's good and bad, right? It's bitter, like I said, it's bittersweet. But today we have a really cool topic that at least I think it's cool. It is balancing the polarity between being ambitious and having goals for yourself, and then also being able to celebrate and appreciate how far you've come and the progress you've made. And so we had this, actually, I was in a networking group last night and we had this conversation. It was BNI, Nahid was one of our BNI study groups. And we talked about this, and it was kind of a hot debate, right? It's like, how do you celebrate how far you've come and appreciate the work you've done, and kind of understand that you've gotten to the point you're at, and you're in a good place. But at the same time, you also have the goals that you want to go after. You still want to keep advancing yourself and keep pushing yourself forward. And that's something that a lot of my clients struggle with, right? It's a polarity, as we call it in coaching, polarities and paradoxes. And it's one of those things where you kind of have to balance the two things, and then the answer lies somewhere in between. Do you see this often with your clients, Naheed?
All the time. I was actually just talking to a client about this yesterday. Yesterday was Wednesday. Yep. Yeah, yesterday, where I told her that we couldn't be having the conversations that we had yesterday until she went through all of what she had gotten through. So the mere fact that we were having a conversation. She may not have seen the success yet because we're just beginning these conversations. The fact that we're having these conversations is a huge sign of progress because a few months back, she wouldn't have been emotionally ready for it. And those are the things. And when I put it to her in those terms, she's like, yeah, you're right. Because we're so used to wanting to see something in hand and then we get it and then we move on because we've forgotten that we got it. Now we're thinking on that about that next step. So sometimes stopping and even saying that I wouldn't be where I am today if I had not gone through those several steps prior makes us remember that we have made progress. Otherwise, we wouldn't, it'd still be back where we were. But
Yeah.
I want to say one thing, which is a little bit different. It just occurred to me. So that, our lives are filled with patterns and cycles. So there are small patterns and cycles and big cycles, right? And so when you think about ancient people who didn't have days, weeks, time to demarcate, they still had a way of appreciating certain things. And I just was just reminded of this. The full moon and the new moon cycle. This might seem a little kooky, but I'm going to share it anyway. So, really, the full moon is supposed to be the time when you are grateful for what you have received. This is, thinking about it as the harvesting time, whatever that harvest happens to be. And the
Mhm.
new moon is when you're setting those new intentions for what you want that next 30-day cycle, right? This is all cycles. What's that next 30-day cycle going to look like? And we don't stop and see the smaller cycles within the big cycles. I think if we did that more, we'd be a lot more satisfied with where we are in our lives.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think that's one of the benefits of having someone, accountability partner, someone to be there with you to kind of point that out, because we're on autopilot, right? We tend to just keep going forward, and we forget all the progress we've made until you take a pause and look back and say, you know what? I remember when this activity that I'm doing right now with relative ease at one point was something that I struggled with. It was something that I could not do. And I thought about this the other day, because I tore my hamstring, partial tear. Thankfully, it wasn't fully, but last weekend, not this past, but the weekend before. And I was like, the way it happened was I was playing football because I love playing sports, and I was playing sports outside of flag football, and I was chasing down this receiver, and I was this close. I almost got him. I really almost, like, this close. Keeps getting wider every time I say it, right? Eventually, I was this close. No, but I was pretty close. I almost got his flag, but then I felt a pop, and I was like, oh, mother. I just got really annoyed, and it was pain, and I was more annoyed than I was in pain. Honestly, it was just frustration, right? But I realized that I've been putting in work, and I was, but I hadn't stretched other things because I was rushing before the game. But I realized, progress-wise, like, and it's kind of the opposite thing, but I know I could have caught that guy a couple years ago, right? Because I was a little faster, and I was younger. I was more active than I was in the last year and a half or so, having sat at my house for days and days on end. But and on that side of things, though, you see that you kind of measure it between what you could do, what you couldn't do before. And then afterwards, I couldn't do basic things, right? I couldn't walk around as easily. And you really appreciate things you're able to do that you don't normally appreciate. And that got me thinking about things that we do that we've pushed ourselves to do to get better at, that we may not have been able to do before. And until you're faced with with the idea that you're not able to do those things, you don't appreciate what you were able to do before. And I think that same thing comes into play here, right? Because it's flipped. In the beginning, you're like, oh, I can't do this. I'm not able to do what I want to do. But then you practice and get better, and then you start doing it later. But then you don't see the difference, right? You don't see how the progress you've made. This happens in weight loss all the time, right? When you lose weight, you see yourself every single day. And so you don't see the incremental growth or incremental weight loss that you have. And then your friend sees you after a week or 6 months or whatever period of time, and they're like, oh my God, you lost weight. You're like, did I really? Because I don't feel like I did. And it's like, because you see yourself every single day. So you see the progress, you see the day after day after day, and you don't notice what you've done, what you've been able to accomplish. But then at the same time, right, like at the same time, you're sitting there saying, okay, I've made this progress. I'm really happy with where I am right now. It's okay to be happy and still have goals, right? It's okay just because you have a future goal of where you want to go or you want to keep pushing yourself, doesn't mean you can't appreciate where you are right now. And the opposite is also true. Like I've had clients who have struggled with that, with saying like, I can't be happy where I am and still have a goal, right? If I say I'm happy where I am, then that means I'm done. That means I'm going to start receding now again. And I think that's a fallacy we fall into,
Yeah, and I feel sorry for people who think that way, because what that's going to mean is that they're never happy in the now moment. Because as soon as you accomplish a goal, what happens? Even before you accomplish a goal, you've already thought about the next goal. You're already your mind is already on that next goal because you're getting closer to this goal. So you've never achieved it, because that's part of life. I mean, we achieve one goal, we move to the next goal, and then we achieve that and we move to the next goal. Oh, goals change. We don't want to go do that path anymore. So if somebody's in that place where they feel that if they don't have all their focus and attention on forward progress, then they're not going to make it. That's usually probably what the reason is. Then they're never in that place of appreciating the here and the now and who they are and who they're becoming. So much more important than being at the end of your life and saying, okay, I live my life, now I'm dead. Oh, now I'm happy. Well, you could be happy with you the whole entire journey, or at least most of it.
Yeah. I mean, you got to appreciate where you're at. You got to appreciate the progress you've made over time. And just because you're doing that doesn't mean you've relegated yourself. You're like, now I'm done. I'm not going to do anything else. I'm going to stop growing at this point. Because guess what? Even if we intend to stop growing, we're never going to stop growing, right? You never actually stop growing. You're always learning. You're always growing. You're always adapting to our environment in some way or another. And the other thing I was thinking about is that everything we do, every action we take, right, whether we intended to or not, has ripple effects through the people we care about, the people in our network, right? And I don't mean network in the official, like, BNI or networking group or, organizations and that kind of thing. I mean network in terms of people you interact with, because people around you see what you're doing and they respond to it. I'm reminded of a client, and there's one client, he had this goal of trying to make a certain amount of money a year, right? And he was doing really well for himself for where he was, but he wasn't seeing that appreciation. He wasn't appreciating where he was in the moment. And he had this goal of where he wanted to go. He almost got there the year before, and he didn't get it. And he was super hard on himself. And we were talking, and I was like, okay, what's that going to enable you to do that you can't do right now for yourself? And he's like, I don't know. I don't know. What do you mean? I'm like, what I mean is the amount of money you're making right now. What does that allow you to do right now? And then what would that other amount of money that you're trying to get to allow you to do that you can't do right now for yourself? And he thought about it. And he was like thinking about it for a while. And he's like, I don't know, nothing. I think I could probably do everything that I want to do right now. I'm like, well, what's stopping you from doing it? Well, he's like, well, I haven't achieved that goal yet. And we dug down, and ultimately he got that goal, that number that he was aspiring to, from just another meeting, another guy in his office. And then the other guy in the office by the way, had no idea that this guy had taken inspiration from him and said, oh, that's a great number. I want to take that number. That guy was like, oh, I want to make $1 million a year. And this guy suddenly was like, that's a good number. I want to make $1 million a year. And it had no meaning for him other than just like, that sounds like a good number to aspire to. And ultimately this guy was making enough money in the moment to live exactly the life he wanted to live, to get to the place that he wanted to get to, and to do all the things he wanted to do, have all the experiences. And so he was like, I guess I could do all that stuff right now. And the only thing holding me back is me, because I'm stopping myself because I haven't got that number yet. And that's the danger of setting goals that are not meaningful to you. They're someone else's goals. They're not your goals. So unless you set goals that are meaningful to you and you have a reason behind that, what's the why behind your goals? You can't appreciate where you're at right now. You can't appreciate how far you've come or the progress you've made towards those goals because you're so focused on it and you don't even have the meaning behind it. And you're going to lose that along the way because sometimes that goal you set in mind is, as much as it's meaningful to you, you don't have to get all the way there to appreciate it and to get where you want to get to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I was just thinking about that. You know, when we think about goals in real life, it's about who we grow to develop into that goal, right? It's how do we expand to achieve that goal? Because usually there's not that much difference in the doing component of what we're doing. We may do things a little bit differently. We may be a little bit smarter about certain things, but it is also because we've grown in that process to be smarter and to do things differently. And I don't think we appreciate that part. You know, a goal is really more of an indication of where you are grown. So recently, a new coaching client of mine, I mean, she's a new coach, is what I meant to say, herself, she sent me a message to say, I got 4 new clients at this new price of mine. And great, fantastic. But the really great and fantastic thing is who she has become as a person, grown in confidence, grown in her understanding of who she is and what she wants to do and who she wants to work with. That's what she's grown in order to get her to that goal. So it's just a simple matter of the goal, achieving the goal is more like an endpoint to say, hey, look, this is how much I've grown. This is how much I've actually expanded in my own awareness so that I could get that goal. And I don't know that we necessarily think about it that way.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think people don't think about it that way. You know, we tend to think about things in terms of like, of that's the thing we want to get to. You know, we have to do X, Y, and Z to get there. But is it really just this matter of doing? I mean, yes, there are a lot of times where you have to take new actions and what you've done to this point is not going to get you to where you want to be, right? There are those situations. But sometimes there's the situations where you just have to reframe things and look at things in a certain way to really get yourself in a position to be who you need to be to get there. And I think Hachi agrees with me again, because I don't know if you can hear him barking there. But the idea is basically, who do you need to be there, to get there? Not so much what you need to do to get there. Because ultimately, who you need to be will come with it certain actions and certain ways of being and certain states of mind. And those actions will become more of a second nature thing to you than it will to try to be the same, same person you are right now and take those different actions to do what you want to do, right? I don't know if
She's very much in agreement.
He super agrees with me. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So my coach has a formula that he shares with me, which is B-E, times do, which is D-O, equals have. And the way you work the formula is you work from right to left. The halves are your goals, right? So you pick a goal, and then you go to the next column to the left, and the do column, what are the steps that you need to take to achieve those goals? And that most people have down. Even if they don't follow the steps, they at least know to some degree what that next step ought to be. But then the final column is the B column. Who do I need to be in order to take the inspired action and get results? And what I mean by that is so many of us take action, but they come from a place of fear, doubt, insecurity, in which case you're not getting a lot of oomph for the return in what you're doing, right? Your investment in your doing, which is money, time, energy, emotion. You feel like you hit a brick wall if you're coming from a place of desperation. And a really good way to be able to visualize it is if you put some numbers in it. So say you do your steps, you take whatever steps you need to take, and you put a 5 in the doing column. But you come from fear, doubt, and insecurity, so you put a 0 in that column. So 0 times 5 is what? 0. You do it the other way. Say you're somebody like me and you love to visualize and you're always seeing your success. So you put a 5 in that column, but you're not taking inspired action. As an opportunity show up and you're not taking action. So you put a 0. Again, 5 times 0 is still 0. In order to get to that 25, that really high return, it's coming from a place of positive anticipation, right? Not all those past fears, not all those past failures and those feelings of disappointment and, oh my God, it's going to happen again. So when you are in that place where you're coming from positive anticipation and you're taking appropriate steps, that's 5 times 5. You're not even adding, you're multiplying. So the return is so much greater. So yeah, you cannot just do, you gotta be being, and that only comes from growth, and that only comes from time and experience, being alive, basically.
Yeah, and well, as you're talking, I think of something I talk to my clients about a lot, which is basically you can't take the past and put that into the future, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because something happened in the past does not mean it's guaranteed to happen in the future, good or bad. By the way, I want to point that out. That's a good or bad thing. It doesn't matter, right? So you're taking whenever you say, oh, this happened before, and my prior business partner, they screwed me over out of $1 million, and I'm not taking on any more partners anymore. Well, you're taking the past situation, which is unique to that situation, I want to point out, right? That one person did this in this one situation that's never going to happen exactly the same way again. And you're saying that that's going to happen in the future with totally new people, with totally different interactions, totally different realities. And that's just not reality. It's not the truth, right? But back to your inspired
action. Even you, totally different you, because you learned from that experience. You are not the same person today.
Right, exactly. And you're completely different because you've had experiences and everything has changed about you since then, right?
Mm-hmm.
You even if you think about it, the amount of time we take to shed all the cells in our bodies, you're totally different. If that happened years ago, you were completely different person. Your cells are totally different at this point, right, than you were back then. So in every single way, you're a different person. Mm-hmm. But I want to talk about something else you said, which is the inspired action piece, which is really, really key. And I love that. For those people who are, I have to do a TV reference in here, who are Parks and Recreations fan. Ron Swanson is a hilarious character on there, but he has a phrase which I love, which is very simple and really encapsulates everything that you just said, which is don't half-ass 2 things, whole-ass 1 thing, right? And it's really a matter of, if you're going to take action, make it an inspired action. Make it an action that you believe in, that you're going to go after, and you're expecting, not expecting, but you're pushing yourself and putting the energy in there that you will be successful. Now, whether you're actually successful or not depends on many, many factors. But for you to be successful, you want to control everything you can control in that situation. And what can you control? Yourself and your mindset and how you go into a situation. So if you go into a situation, to Naheed's point, where if you go into a situation where you're not taking inspired action, or you're taking action like, I guess I'll just do this, we'll see what happens. Well, all of the other things in that situation, all the other external stuff that could go wrong, if one thing goes wrong and then you add that to your uninspired mentality, now there's an infinite more chance that things are not going to go the way you want it to go. But if you have this good mentality, this positive mentality of like, I'm going to make this work, I'm going to do the best I can, and this is going to be a great situation for me. It's a great opportunity at the very least. You go in there with that positive mentality. Now, if things go wrong, you'll try to find a way around it. You're trying to get through them and work through it much more readily. That resolve will come up, right? Absolutely. And that's where I always say resolve is much more important than skill or knowledge, because if you have the resolve to do something, you will find a way to get it done. If you just have the knowledge and no inspired action, no inspiration behind it, no resolve, it's like, oh, it didn't work out. I guess I'm just gonna go mope about it for a while, and this thing never work out the way I want you to work out.
Here's another evidence of something not working out for me.
Exactly, and it's just you just try to reinforce that same mentality.
And yeah, and sometimes we like to wallow in that, right? We all have a moment of time when we wallow in that. However, since I don't know whether you threw in a movie reference or what reference you threw in, as you were talking, so I saw something, and I don't know whether it was a TV or movie reference. I don't even know if it's particularly relevant to what we're talking about.
Pop culture reference right now?
I don't know if it's pop culture, but I want to share something.
Okay, go ahead.
It was some kind of quote that just got triggered when I heard you say this. I think it's an American Indian quote about how you cannot have one ass and ride on 2 horses.
Yes. Yeah, I think that was an American saying. Yeah, I think you're right.
Okay, see, I have a little. I can't remember whether it was TV or a movie or what reference it was, but it was. Yeah, you really got to pick a lane and go with it all out.
Yeah, agreed.
Are you doing something like that in your life right now?
Am I doing what?
something where you just have to use resolve. It's something new, something different that you're trying out, and you're just using the resolve to actually just going for it, just full steam.
I try to do that generally with my business because it's like it's always just, I just got to keep pushing all the time because things are not always, as you know, things are not always easy in business, right? So you got to keep pushing through everything. So yeah, if I don't get a successful interaction with a client in terms of like trying a prospective client, like a
Mhm.
sales interaction, I got to push forward and get on to the next one. You know, and I can't take that into the next interaction and be like, oh well, this never happens. I never get sales. You know, I got to go to the next one, and then I'm taking that mentality into the next sales conversation. And guess what? I'm not going to get that sale either.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, so for me, I am doing something similar because I'm working on a new way of providing my services, which is groups. Groups were not something that I used to do before. And so I've made a resolve every month, once a month, I do a workshop on chronic pain. Again, something a little bit different than what I normally do, but same underlying philosophies. And I have made the decision that I am going to offer these chronic pain workshops as long as it takes for me to get clients in chronic pain because I know I have a program that's really beneficial for them. And so every month I do it, and every month I tell myself if it's not this month, it's going to be next month. And guess what? I learn from everyone, right? I grow from everyone. It's not like everyone is exactly the same thing. So every month I give it, I am a little bit different. But I cannot stop and just say, oh my gosh, that was a failure. That's never going to happen. This kind of stuff is never going to be the same. So really it's about taking that resolve. I like the idea about resolve because if you don't have resolve and if you don't have that inspiration to move forward with something, you're not going to have the stick to itness that everything requires. Like if you think about the really, top notch, I don't know, business people, but mostly athletes come to mind at this point. They had the stick to itness that got them to where they are today. And guess what? We can do the same thing.
Absolutely. No, I mean, you think about Michael Jordan, right? I mean, he was not good at basketball when he was younger, right? He talks about it all the time. He every single day for a long time, he took like 1,000 free throws to the point where he got to the point where he actually could shoot a free throw.
I did not know that.
Yeah, that was a part of his story. He shot every single day. He didn't make his. I think it was, I want to say middle school or maybe high school. I might make those things up. But at one point, he was not good at basketball, and his coach told him he was never going to make it. He was too short, right? And so he just made it a point to shoot 3 free throws, like 1,000 free throws a day. I think was what it was at, something like that. And he just went after it. And he's the greatest basketball player of all time. No debate. I know people are going don't at me in the comments, bro. No, I mean, people are going to talk about LeBron, whatever. My point is Jordan worked his ass off and he became the greatest of all time in terms of like just ball handle, everything, all that kind of stuff. He just was amazing, right? And that's the resolve that he had, though. The resolve he had was the discipline of like, I'm going to do this no matter what. I'm going to work my ass off and make this work. And if you have that mentality, there's not many things that can stop you because you're going to be able to go through any situation. You're going to find a way either through or around. And you'll break through the barriers that you think are the perceived barriers you think are holding you back. And no one's going to be able to stop that version of you because you're going to be able to say, I'm going to do this no matter what. And I'm going to get better. I'm going to overcome whatever challenges that come my way, and I will fight for it. There's so many stories of those kind of things that happen, and you only hear a fraction of them, right? Because only a fraction of them become famous, and only a fraction of them do you really want to become famous, honestly. So push yourself in the mind of like, I'm going to do this no matter what. But at the same time, you can still appreciate the progress you've taken to get where you're at, right? And look at where you're at and say, take time to look back at where were you a year ago, right? What was going on for you a year ago? Or 2 years from now, maybe a year ago was kind of a blur for people because every day is the same. So maybe 2 years ago, right? 2 years ago, where were you? What were you doing, right? What kind of things were holding you back? What kind of things were worrying you? What the kind of things were you excited about? And then now, where are you right now? How far have you come in the last year? And then if you haven't made much progress in the last year, that's okay too. It's not like it depends on where you want it to be, right? If you meant to be at a certain place, why didn't you get there? Take that look and say, just be honest with yourself though. Don't BS yourself. Don't make excuses for yourself. Don't backwards rationalize. Yes, there's a pandemic, but people are out there doing stuff still, right? In terms of not out there, but in here doing stuff, right, for themselves. If you have goals for yourself, figure out what you want to do to get there and how you want to be, who you want to be to get there.
So two things that you just said that I think are really important. If we don't take the time to go back and look what happened a year later, I don't think our motivation is as high. I truly get motivated when I see progress, right? So when you begin to see that, oh look, I've come from point A to point B, I can relax, not relax as in the goal is not as important, but I can relax into the confidence of knowing that the goal, I'm on my way to meeting my goal. It just boosts my confidence. It boosts my motivation. I'm like, yeah, I'm so close. I'm kind of getting there. So that part was really important. And the second part is, how do you want to achieve your goals? There are some things where you can DIY it, right? Whatever it is, you can do on your own. But there are other things that if you want to get there on a timely basis, or you want to get it done right, or some things, it's a safety issue related to that, whatever it happens to be, if you want to be able to get to that place with the most direct manner, talk to somebody who that's their job. That's their job to get it done. On a completely unrelated note, we're adding a fence to our property. Some of our homeowners, this is not their thing, but they made it work for themselves and they installed the fence themselves. My husband and I are like, we're not messing around with concrete and concrete holes and God knows what other mess we'd make. I'm like, we're getting the professionals to handle it. For us, that was outside of our scope, and we wanted it done right the first time. So really being honest about how are you going to get from here to there and what path you want to take, that makes a big difference too.
Yeah, I like what you said about that too, and especially about how you want to get there and what expertise you have, because sometimes you need external resources to get you where you need to go, right? You don't necessarily need to. You don't have to be an expert in everything you do, right? And this actually, believe it or not, came up last night as well in terms of like the abilities you have in your business as a business owner, especially as a business owner, but as a person as well. But especially as a business owner, you want to be able to be honest with yourself and take a hard look and say, where are my skills? Right? What am I good at? What am I able to do? And what am I able to do well? That's the first question. The second question is, now, is it worth my time to do it, even though I'm good at it, right? If you're already running a business and you're good at numbers, for example, right? It could still take you a significant amount of time to do your own accounting, to do your own taxes, to do your own bookkeeping. Is it worth your time to do that, right? Versus giving it to a professional tax preparer or a CPA or an accounting firm to actually do the work for you. That's just an example. I'm not saying you should or shouldn't do anything, right? Everyone knows how I feel about the word should, but it's a matter of taking a hard look at yourself and saying, what's the best and most effective and efficient path forward to where I want to be, right? If that's outsourcing some of the work that you're doing right now that's not aligned with where you want to be or who you want to be, then absolutely go do that. If it's something where you can just take that and still be able to do all that work yourself, that's totally fine. But when I think of that kind of the do-it-yourself type of things that are failed, I think of my dad a lot, because my dad loved to save money by doing it ourselves or hiring someone who doesn't do that as their regular job. You kind of like, oh yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that as well. Why not? Yeah, sure. And sure enough, you got to call that person back or call an actual professional who knows what the hell they're doing to come back and fix whatever that person screwed up. And so, there's a reason that people have expertise and have jobs and have like businesses doing these things like electricians or like painters, for example, but it's really one of those things where you want to establish your own goals, establish what you need to do to get there, and find out what resources you need to get there too, right? The resolve doesn't mean you have to do everything yourself. Resolve could mean I'm going to do what the hell I want to do, and when I get to where I need to get to, but I will also seek resources to get me there as well and get me there better.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, really well said. Should not be on our plate to take on every single thing, because our big goals, our multi-year goals generally involve other people. There's usually space for us to bring in support in some way or the other. And again, if you're not bringing it in, then you have to remind yourself that you're not taking the most direct route, because now you're taking on all these various hats. Some of them, like you said, you may be good at, others you may not be, but you may have convinced yourself, whether it's for monetary reasons or whatever other reasons. Maybe it's because, as you said, there was a prior experience of somebody having a bad experience with something like that, and therefore you're like, that's it, I'm never going to use anybody else again, so it has to be me, right? Those are all stories that are not true. They were true at that moment, but if you allow those stories to run your life, you you'll get to your goal eventually. It's just going to take you a heck of a lot longer.
They weren't even true in that moment. They're true for that situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't even a true story overall. That situation happened where I got that way. I mean, we're running out of time, but I'll tell this one quick story. One of my recent clients right now, when we were talking initially, when we first met and talking about him working together with a coach, he was like, I've met business coaches before, and I'm not really a fan of the way that they would do things and their approach. And I asked him, like, so tell me more about what you've done with business coaches before in the past. And he's like, well, I had a coach one time, and I just paid them a lot of money, and they didn't really do anything for me. They're just like, telling me, oh yeah, do this, do that. And I'm like, I'm already doing that. I already do that stuff anyway. What am I paying you for? And when I talk to him about the mindset work that I do, because I'd say 80% of my work is mindset, right? It's really about helping people to overcome the old stories, write new stories for themselves, and really write productive stories for themselves that actually make sense, as opposed to saying, I'm going to take that past situation and make that a rule going into the future of my life. Mm-hmm. And he was like, I never thought about that before. I never actually worked with a coach who focused on that before. And we made some amazing progress since then. But that old story was still holding him back. And that old story was still, in a lot of ways, influencing the way he operated, because he felt like he had to do everything himself. He's like, oh, coach is not going to help me. And how many people have that same mentality where, like, oh, plumber screwed up, they cost so much money, but you don't actually have the visibility into what they do to understand how much they've helped you or how much they've done what they've done, until you have the bad experience with the bad plumber or the bad coach or whatever, and understand that, oh wait, this person actually takes a lot and knows a lot more than I gave them credit for knowing. So it's something where it's like, understand your own limitations, because we all have them, right? I mean, we all have them.
Even if you're Michael Jordan?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Even if Michael Jordan, I mean,
he's not doing his own plumbing.
He's definitely not playing baseball. That's for damn sure.
Who was that guy who did all three?
Bo Jackson. He did football and baseball. I don't think he did three. I think he did two.
Baseball, football. Okay, maybe two. Good enough, right? Two is pretty good.
Two is pretty amazing. I think they banned that from going forward after Bo Jackson, because I think he just had too much going on. So I don't know, but I mean, there's more risk involved, obviously, when you have two professional sports you're playing, but that's a different conversation.
Different conversation. But the reason I started this conversation with the fact that we're in fall is because as we're moving on to next year, we're thinking about our goals. So I want to bring it back as we're ending. I want to bring it back to the beginning. So we're all thinking about 2022, what 2022 is going to look like. But as you're doing that, take some time and, be grateful for the fact that you are alive. We cannot take that for granted anymore, but also be grateful for what it is that you've accomplished, even if these past few years have been really difficult. For many people, they felt like life has come to a standstill because of the anxiety, the stress, whatever it happens to be. If you're one of those people you feel like nothing moved forward for you, just know that sometimes these cycles are a bit longer, and you may just be in a bigger cycle that when you're in the middle, you can't see it quite yet, but you're still moving. Believe it or not, you're still moving. So just if people can take some time as we move into fall and think about what are the things that we're most grateful for in our lives that we contributed to, right? I think it will help you be motivated when you think about the next steps and what you want to accomplish going forward. So that's my 2 cents for today.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I think that's a great way to look at it. And 100%, nothing is taken for granted anymore. I mean, nothing can be taken for granted, especially not life. Because, I mean, we've had a lot of challenges in that over the last year and a half. But for you guys, what are some things you want to celebrate for yourself? Like Heath said, right? What are some things that you think are worth celebrating, or that maybe you didn't think you're worth celebrating, but now maybe you think they are, Along the way, establish some milestones to your goals. So that way you're not just looking at just beginning and then end of the goal. How do you know you're on the right track, right? What are some ways you can measure success for yourself? Let us know in the comments below some ideas you have for yourself in terms of goals you have for yourself going forward, as well as ways you want to celebrate the progress on the way to those goals. Because sometimes you'll fall just short, and you maybe need another week or two to get to that goal. Does that mean you failed? Depends. Only if you really say that's the case. And other times you really have a hard deadline and you really want to get there. So how do you know you're going to make progress to get there and you're on track to get to where you need to get to? So let us know in the comments below. Thank you guys again for watching so much. We appreciate it. We appreciate the support. Thanks for the comments. Pammy, hey, good to see you again. It's been a while. But thanks a lot, everyone. And thanks, Justice, for being in the background, doing all the director work in the background here. Let us know if you like the video. Hit the like button, hit subscribe. Let us know what you want to talk about in future videos. And we'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
Yeah. As always, it's really great to be able to share some of the things that we're also working on in our lives, because we too are hand in glove with all of these issues that we're dealing with.
Absolutely. Everyone deals with them, even us. So don't talk to them. Thanks, guys. Take care. Have a great weekend.